Check. All right. We need another bell. Good evening. Good evening, and welcome to the Explorers Club. My name is Paul Tangy, and I serve on the club's board of directors and as co-chair of our Public Lectures Committee. And on behalf of our committee, my co-chair Natalie Cash here in the front, and our club president, Barbara Duran. We are glad you are here tonight. Since 1904, this club has gathered a community of people committed to the scientific exploration of land, sea, air, and space. And since 1922, every Monday night, we have come together for a public lecture that is part of that mission. Your presence here tonight makes you part of that tradition. Please raise your hand if this is your first time at the Explorers Club. That's awesome. Welcome. You belong here. Please raise your hand if you are an Explorers Club member. All right, to our guests, to order a drink at the bar afterwards, please find one of those people who just had their hands up to bring you down as a guest. Tonight's lecture, and I appreciate your patience as we start a little bit behind schedule. This is going to run 1 hour. But tonight's lecture is our Memorial Day program, presented in partnership between the Public Lectures Committee and the Explorers Club's Military and Veteran Initiative. For the past 3 years, this committee and members of this initiative, and helping us tonight, I especially want to thank Commander G. Mark Miller, retired from the United States National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration Corps, and Lieutenant Commander Philip Boak of the Royal Navy, currently serving aboard His Majesty's ship Protector, and who has visited Vernadsky. These members of the Explorers Club military-connected community have worked together with Public Lectures to mark Memorial Day with a lecture exploring the theme of sacrifice in exploration, the cost that discovery has always demanded, and the people who have paid them. Tonight, in partnership with the Ukrainian Institute of America, we carry that tradition to Antarctica. We have 5 speakers and a special video from the ice, and we will open the floor for questions and plan to close in about 1 hour. But I want to begin with a story. A nation at war receives word that one of its celebrated explorers is preparing to depart for Antarctica. The question before the government is whether to recall them. Resources are stretched, the world is in crisis, the case for postponement is obvious. The government's answer comes back: proceed. The mission will go on. Science does not pause for war. You might be thinking of Ukraine's mission to Antarctica, and you would be right, but you would not be the first person to think through this, because in 1914, that explorer was Ernest Shackleton. That expedition was the Endurance. And as the First World War opened across Europe, Winston Churchill, the then First Lord of the Admiralty, sent Shackleton a single word in a telegram: proceed. So he did, south into the ice, into one of the most celebrated journeys in the history of exploration, undertaken while the world burned. This club was built on exactly that choice. In 1881, the United States Army dispatched 25 soldiers to Lady Franklin Bay in the high Arctic as America's first major contribution to the International Polar Year. Their commander was Lieutenant Adolphus Greely, a Civil War veteran whose beard concealed a bayonet wound to the face received at the Battle of Antietam, the bloodiest single day of the American Civil War, the battle that gave Lincoln the political footing to issue the Emancipation Proclamation. 23 years after he led that expedition, when a group of explorers gathered in New York City to found this club, they chose Greely as their first president. He understood from hard experience that this institution exists to prove what a nation can build when it turns away from war. Greely's generation knew that a nation's destructive military achievements create an obligation to redeem those wounds through something that benefits all of humanity rather than defeating any part of it. Science was part of that redemption. For Greely and his fellow Civil War veterans, the International Polar Year was not a diversion from the war's legacy, but part of its answer. America understood, as Britain would understand with Shackleton and as Ukraine understands today, that scientific ambition announces to the world something that military achievement cannot. It announces that this is a nation with a mind as well as an army, a people whose contributions to human knowledge earn them a place at the table of civilized nations, one that no invading force can take away. Scientific achievement is a form of sovereignty. 19 of Greely's 25 men did not come home from that expedition. Not killed in action, they died in scientific action, in the ice, of cold and starvation in an environment that does not negotiate. That distinction matters. Exploration carries its own costs, its own casualties, its own form of valor. And when it is undertaken in the midst of war, it becomes something even more. It becomes an act of defiance against the idea that a nation's mind must surrender when its body is under siege. This is what Ukraine has refused to do. Since Russia's full-scale invasion began in 2022, Ukrainian scientists have continued operating Akademik Vernadsky Station. The research vessel NOOSFERA has kept sailing. Polar science has continued, not despite of the war, but in full knowledge of it, carried forward by people for whom continuing is itself an act of resistance. Tonight, in the tradition of Greely, of Shackleton, and of every explorer who has pressed on when the world said stop, we will hear from people who refuse to stop. Tonight, we are privileged to welcome an extraordinary group of voices. Our first speaker is an Explorers Club member and filmmaker whose connection to the story is personal. Born in Ukraine and raised in New York, Alexander has spent years documenting life at the Vernadsky Station in a documentary in progress that brings the place, the people, and the science to life. He's going to open our program by telling the story of the station itself. Then joining him live from Kharkiv at 2:23 in the morning is Dr. Andrei Udovetsky, and I apologize for my poor Ukrainian. Dr. Andrei is a marine biologist and a veteran of 7 Antarctic expeditions. He's completed more than 200 dives in the waters surrounding Vernadsky, and tonight he will take us beneath the ice to share his research into the diversity and evolution of Antarctic leeches of the Southern Ocean. We will then be joined by Lydia, Executive Director of the Ukrainian Institute of America and our official partner in tonight's program, who will address the question that this evening raises: how do we connect with what is happening there now? Lydia will be followed by David, the consul from the British Consulate General in New York, who will speak to the historic and ongoing cooperation with the British Antarctic Survey and Ukraine's National Antarctic Scientific Center. And then we will close with a video message recorded especially for us tonight from Anzelika Hanchuk. Stay tuned to hear how someone who can say it properly will say it. But she is the first female base commander in the history of Vernadsky Station, and she's recorded her message, especially from the ice, for us. So with that, a lot of speakers, let's jump in. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome our first speaker, Alexander Richterman.
Thank you so much, everyone. Let's roll the video, and then I'll speak just shortly after that.
My name is Alexander Richterman, and I'm an explorer. I've told stories of the high Arctic, climbed Kilimanjaro, mapped out 100-foot-high cliffside caves in Southeast Asia, and studied the working conditions of wildlife rangers in Kyrgyzstan. The origins of these expeditions started here, at the bar of the famed Explorers Club, an almost spiritual place where curiosity is personified in the adventurous, the bold, those that pursue the unknown, and more importantly, bring back what they've discovered. It's only fitting my next expedition will explore my roots as a Ukrainian and take me to another bar, the bar at the end of the world. Ukraine's Antarctic Research Station Vernadsky has clandestine origins from World War II.
The actual purpose was to establish a permanent presence in Antarctica to defend Britain's territorial claim.
And was first established as a British meteorological research site. Over the years, it has been host to hundreds of explorers and scientists on a mission to better understand our planet. Another covert station operation was the construction of the world's southernmost bar in 1980.
Now, the famous bar at Farthest Station, it was a bar that should never have been built.
The materials, originally meant for another structure, were repurposed for Faraday bar. While the carpenter was let go for his reappropriation, the bar remains an integral part of station life. Later, in 1996, the site was sold to the Ukrainian Antarctic program for £1 sterling and was renamed to Antarctic Station Akademik Vernadsky. Since then, research at the site has expanded to include terrestrial and marine biologies,
А вот как раз жизнь в Антарктиде в основном сконцентрирована именно в океане или на его берегу.
glaciology, and continued the world's longest-running dataset on Antarctic atmospheric readings. This is the story of Vernadsky Station, and all those who have called it home. Welcome to the bar at the end of the world.
So, sorry to disappoint you all. Unfortunately, I have not yet been to the bar at the end of the world. I started my documentary with research and interviews in the UK and Cambridge at the British Antarctic Survey in 2019, along with visiting the Ukrainian Antarctic National Program at the same year in Kiev. I was set to go down to Antarctica on a cruise ship that would drop me off there in early 2022, but unfortunately the tail end of COVID canceled that ship. So this project is still in the back burner for me, and that's why this documentary is a work in progress. But going before that, I was born in Ukraine. My family immigrated to New York when I was young, and I was looking for stories that I'm in a unique position to tell. And my dad, he grew up with some of the people that will become researchers that will go down to Antarctica. And so one of these days, he's like, hey, if you're looking for a story, I know the right people. So that was sort of the genesis of the documentary and the idea, and I'm still hoping to go down there after the war ends to be able to scuba dive with the people down there 250 feet and to really present their story, but also present the story of Vernadsky and then Faraday Station before that and Station F in all of its context. So having said that, I think it's really an important mission that the Ukrainians are doing now despite the war. But it's also really interesting to learn about the overall history because it's a fascinating history with a lot of geopolitics as well as clandestine operations, just like the building of the bar there. So bars are definitely bringing the world together. But having said that, I have some interview clips from Kyiv and Cambridge that will present a side of Vernadsky that I think the general public doesn't really know yet. So the first interview soundbite will be from a gentleman by the name of John Dudney. He wintered at the station in 68 and 69 as an ionospheric physicist, and he was a base commander at 68 also. And then he continued working for the British Antarctic Survey, finally retiring as a deputy director in 2006. Our second speaker will be a video interview with the carpenter that built the actual bar. So I had his interview or video shortly after I produced that trailer. So he'll give an update on the exact origins of that bar. And the third speaker will be Sergei Komisarenko. He was Ukraine's ambassador to the UK in post-Soviet times. So he was the one that saw the fact that the British Antarctic Survey were thinking of sort of not getting rid of Faraday Station, but giving it to someone else. So him being a researcher and academic, a member of the Ukrainian Academy of Sciences, he saw that this was a unique time and moment for Ukraine to be able to restart their Antarctic research program upon the dissolution of the Soviet Union. So I'm really proud to share these never-before-seen interview soundbites with you guys.
So Operation Tabarin was a secret Second World War operation which had a cover story that it was to monitor the activities of Axis raiders, in particular their use of good ports and anchorages in the Antarctic. This, however, was merely the cover story, and the actual purpose was to establish a permanent presence in Antarctica to defend Britain's territorial claim, because at the time Argentina appeared to be taking advantage of Britain's distraction by the war to establish its own presence in Antarctica. And so the parties were sent down there to establish a permanent presence. But right from the beginning, this was really a civilian operation run by the Colonial Office with military support from the Admiralty. And its main purpose was to carry out scientific activity and survey, although obviously it had a political purpose of maintaining the presence. So that was how it operated as Operation Tabarin for the first couple of years. Then the question arose, what to do? Should we keep this going or not? And so as the war came to an end, the Operation Tabarin was civilized completely and brought under the control of the Falkland Islands government, and was renamed the Falkland Islands Dependencies Survey, and then continued in that role until the signing of the Antarctic Treaty. When I was a young man, I was a very quiet individual, and carrying forward a degree in physics. And in my final year, just before I graduated, I had been offered a very prestigious post at Imperial College to do research on plasma physics. And for some reason, which I no longer now remember, I decided I wanted to go to the Antarctic. The focus was as a geophysical observatory, so the main programs were in meteorology, both surface meteorology and flying weather balloons up into the stratosphere. There was also a geomagnetic program to monitor the Earth's magnetic field. There was a program to measure the total amount of ozone above the station, and an ionosonde that studied the high atmosphere, the ionized part of the atmosphere, which is the work that I was doing. And I was base commander of Base F when the first tour ship ever to visit Base F visited it. It was a ship called the Navarino, and it was a party, I suppose, of about 100 people, led, oddly enough, by Peter Scott, Sir Peter Scott, Scott's son. It was his first trip to the Antarctic. But it came as a great shock to us because we had just spent a complete winter isolated for 10 months or more of the year, just 12 men, forgotten how women smelt and so on. And over the snow slope near the hut came this army of red people wearing red anoraks, young women amongst them, to disturb our peace. So it was quite an unusual and unsettling experience, actually, because when you have been in such a tight, isolated community, that sort of intrusion can be quite difficult, although it was also entertaining. When I was the base commander, I was 23 years old. I couldn't grow a beard. I looked about 17 or 18. And it was a great surprise to the tourists to find this child in charge of the station. And I don't think they really got that round their heads. Actually, they were really quite surprised by it. Well, the famous bar at Farthest Station was a bar that should never have been built. It was built out of materials that were intended for another purpose, and as such, the management of BAS were not particularly happy about the building of the bar. The individual concerned ceased to work for BAS, but the bar was sufficiently professional and attractive that it would have been a crime to have pulled it to pieces. And anyway, the wood could not have been used for its original purpose, so the bar was left. And it is quite a significant feature of Antarctica, that bar, there's no doubt about it. When I went in the Antarctic in the 60s, we didn't have a bar at all. That wasn't something that we really thought about, but now that is a focal point for the station.
The decision to actually do something a little bit outstanding at Faraday really started at the interview in Cambridge, because I was told there that Faraday, unfortunately, is the worst base the British have got. It's a sad old place. Nobody wants to go there. I was actually told I think it's because I had a good sense of humour that, oh, the place needs cheering up and you seem the sort of person to do it. So I actually spoke to them about doing bits and pieces, but nothing specific. So that's what I done. I took that idea down with me, and I thought, once we actually turned up on base, it was a really miserable place to be. And decided to put a bit of life in it. The materials for the bar was, there's been a few stories on the internet about what the materials were meant for. One of them was actually to build a boat while we was down there. I'm no boat builder. It was actually material taken down as spare. Because we're cut off for such a long time, there's work that you can't see. You have to kind of make up as you go along. So we knew we had to take a certain amount of materials spare, and that's exactly what that material was. I hate to ruin it, but it wasn't meant for a pier or a boat. It was just spare material, and I kind of appropriated it for the bar. And everybody agreed a bar would be the best thing. So the idea was the bar itself was to look a little bit like the back end of an old galleon, and which I think it kind of pulled off. We actually got there. It's not like it now. It's more like a pub ceiling now all around. But originally it was done as a disco ceiling with lots of disco lights in and like a dance floor. We had nobody to dance with, but it was a dance floor. Cambridge, I'm not really kind of sure when they started to find out about it. I think it was when the ship pulled in at the Falkland Islands just before it come down to us. And they had some officials on board the ship as well. And as soon as they got off the ship, they could obviously, this isn't right, this is not supposed to be here. So, yeah, that's how it all kind of worked. The consequences of us building the bar was that the official spoke to us on base and then back on Bransfield, and the only comeback on it was that we was to go to Cambridge, myself and Thomas Totten, go back to Cambridge headquarters on return to England, and obviously explain the situation to them, which we done on arrival back in England. That was about an hour's interview there. I explained the whole situation of what had gone on, how we built it, the amount of time we took. I did say to them, you asked me right at the very beginning to turn the base round and make it a place that people would love to go to. And I said, that's what we done. They fully accepted our answer. There was no comebacks to it. We was paid in full, and we got our Antarctic bonus payments and everything. So, yeah, all we had to do was explain ourselves.
For 2 years, I was serving as Vice Prime Minister of Ukraine, responsible for humanitarian matters. It means medicine, education, science, culture, and so on and so on. More than half of Ukrainian population, by the way. And then, when we started our diplomatic service, already being an independent country, the President of Ukraine invited me and offered me a position of ambassador. So in 1993, I don't remember exactly the date because at that time I was not fixing the date, it was just ordinary work. I've got a letter, as many letters I was obtaining from the Foreign Office from different organizations in Britain, that Britain is considering to sell its most famous Antarctic station named after Faraday. Faraday, British Faraday Antarctic Station. I knew very well, as being a scientist and a member of the Ukrainian Academy of Sciences, that Ukraine was very active during Soviet time in Arctic and Antarctic expeditions and research. With the dissipation of the Soviet Union, Russia took over everything and didn't even offer Ukraine something, Russia had, I don't remember, 15 or 14 Antarctic stations, and they just took everything. But we were participating in Antarctic research before, and Ukraine was definitely second, but in some issues even the first in the Soviet Union in scientific research. So I wrote immediately a letter to the President of Ukraine, to the Foreign Office certainly, and to the National Academy of Sciences where I was a member, that there is a chance for Ukraine to obtain an Antarctic station. So we have started negotiations and with the Foreign Office and at the same time with British Antarctic Survey. So I start to probe whether there is any chance, due to the, not the best, or may say quite a bad economic situation in Ukraine. Ukraine became an independent country with a very good science, and it will be very nice and very, a generous gift if the Britain will donate the station to Ukraine, and certainly a very good sign of a gesture. So to some extent, I guess it was a chance which my life gave me, and we used it. But the Britain won't be Britain if they won't check to whom they donate the station. It's not just simply get rid of it. So they started to examine whether Ukraine has enough of scientific potential to run this. And when they discovered that Ukraine indeed has quite good scientific potential to follow this research, they gave green light, from the British Antarctic Survey. And 2 years later, after 1993, on July 20th, we have signed a memorandum on the transfer, free transfer, by the way. It was a very generous gift. I'm very thankful to the British government for that, on the transfer of Faraday Station.
So those are some sound bites from the up-and-coming documentary, The Bar at the End of the World, whenever I will make it to the bar at the end of the world. And I'm also very pleased to introduce our next speaker, Andrei Utevsky. I had the chance to meet him in person when I was doing my research and interviews in Kiev, in Ukraine. And he has a lot of amazing stories about scuba diving in Antarctica, as well as his research on a lot of different animals and leeches in the Antarctic ecosystem and the Southern Ocean. And here he is, Andrei Utevsky. Take it away.
Thank you very much. Thank you to Alex for the invitation, and very thanks for all you, and for the possibility to represent my Antarctic experience and research.
So right now it's 2:30 a.m. in Kharkiv in Ukraine for Andrei.
Yeah, I'm directly. There's some technical problems. One moment.
You should be able to share now. Perfect.
Oh.
We're seeing the screen. your slides.
It's okay? Yeah.
Yes.
My presentation, Antarctica, leeches and expeditions in my life and research. Now my research is supported by the Ministry of Science and Education and by the scientific grant of Horizon, which is supported by the European Union. Around 50 years ago, I found this book in my father's library. After that, underwater research became my dream, and this book, in this book, the stories about Arctic and Antarctic underwater explorers were absent. That is why I got interested to underwater research in polar region. Who I am now? I'm associated professor at the Department of Zoology and Animal Ecology at the Kharkiv National University, Kharkiv, Ukraine. I prepared the thesis about Antarctic fish leeches, its evolution, morphology, and taxonomy. I were a wintering biologist and eighth Ukrainian Antarctic expedition in 0304 and scientific diving supervisor during some Antarctic expeditions. It's maybe 7 expeditions, and completed 207 scientific dives in Antarctic waters to the depths up to 60 meters. Participant in marine ecological expeditions to the White, Barents, and Kara Sea. Expedition leader to Svalbard. Participant in the hydrobiological expeditions to the Kazakhstan, Azerbaijan, Sicily, and Sardinia. Completed training at the British Antarctic Survey and in the University of Cambridge. I teach and develop academic courses in invertebrate zoology, hydrobiology, and fundamentals of oceanology, histology and histological techniques, and general parasitology. I also organize the field practice for our students. Also, I teach scuba divers. I'm scuba diving instructor, deep 3 stars, with 45 years of diving experience, and the author and co-author of the 3 editions of the manuals for Ukrainian scuba divers. To get closer to Antarctica, I start studying the diversity of Antarctic fish leeches in 1991. And after that, I described around 11 species of fish leeches from Antarctica, Arctic regions, and Southern Hemisphere. Some of these leeches you can see on these pictures. This is the amazing leeches with unique morphology. During some last years, we worked with deep water leeches. With some of them you can see here. This is a Ceratopdella quadricornuta from Scosh Sea, from the depths near 800 meters, which parasiting on Antarctic steriscate with very interesting anterior sucker with 4 tentacles. Ambulopdella shandikovi, which named it in the honor of the Ukrainian ichthyologist Gennady Shandikov, which took part in maybe 10 Antarctic expeditions. This leech from the Ross Sea, from the depth near 1.5 kilometers, which parasite in Antarctic Macrurus whitsoni. In this leech have leg-like projections. And amazing leech from South Africa with 2 male gonopores, which parasiting on South African decapods. And our very interesting result, this is a leech from Kuril-Kamchatka Trench from North Pacific, which was found on the depth near 9 kilometers. And our special interest is the largest leech in the world, Megalopdella shedati, which was described by the American zoologists Mayer and Barson from the Ross Sea. Now in our collection we have 3 specimens, and DNA barcoding for these specimens was performed for the first time. Some of our knowledge of Antarctic leeches is summarized in comprehensive monograph, Antarctic piscicolite leeches. You can find in the Smithsonian's library and online on the Biodiversity Heritage Library. In 03-04, I took part in 8th Ukrainian Antarctic expedition and spent around 14 months on Akademik Vernadsky Station. 105 research dives for the depth around 60 meters were conducted for studying benthic biodiversity of the Argentine islands. On this picture you can see our station. former British station Faraday. Diving operations were conducted year-round under various conditions, beneath moving ice, under the ice fields. Very difficult and complicated conditions. In the open ocean among icebergs, for studying the distribution of Antarctic krill. Benthic and tetrabrace were studied during underwater research in 2011, 2020. Total of 207 scientific dives were conducted to the depths up to 60 meters. Some of the working moments you can see on this picture. Standard photographic documentations was conducted at various depths for biodiversity assessment. Now, in our collections, more than 200 species and a lot of specimens of invertebrates for morphological analysis, DNA barcoding, and phylogenetic analysis for reconstruction is phylogeny and evolution, for understanding the origin of Antarctic benthic fauna. We use portable side-scan chart plotter to prepare three-dimensional model of the seabed around the Argentine islands. The results of this modeling you can see on this picture. Based on this research, our team prepared a project for marine protected area network around the Argentine islands for CAMLAR. What we now doing? Studying Antarctic benthic diversity, phylogeny, and evolution using morphological and molecular genetic methods. Testing environmental DNA methods for studying hidden Antarctic biodiversity. Studying the diversity and phylogeny of the Central Asia freshwater leech. Studying eDNA from freshwater bodies to understand the impact of war on freshwater ecosystems. We are using the Oxford nanopore technology to achieve these objectives. On this picture, you can see the DNA RNA sequencer, Minion, which we used for sequencing the DNA products. During some last 2 years, we organized 2 expeditions, leech expeditions, on Sardinia and Sicilia. On these 2 pictures, you can see our research team on Sardinia, small lakes, and Sicilia. And we found very interesting species and specimens during these expeditions. In 2023, we described the new species, Australopledelina prodiga, with our colleagues from Poland, France, and Slovenia. This is a leech from Ross. This leech distributed in the Ross, Cosmonos, and Risser Larsen Sea, and parasiting on small fish, Trematomus bernacci. This leech have a famous evolutionary history. The evolutionary history of this species resembles the gospel parable of the prodigal son. The ancestors of this species originated in Antarctica, crossed the equator, reached the northern Pacific Ocean, and then returned to Antarctica. We reconstruct this way of this species using the molecular phylogenetics and phylogeographics methods. This is a reconstruction of the phylogeny of fish leeches. Fish leeches came from Antarctica 37 million years ago. We established these results using the molecular methods, and the dinosaur leech, as we say, Megaleabdella shedati, the ancestors of this leech possess the base position in the phylogenical tree of all fish leeches from all regions of world ocean. And after that, some species returned to the homeland. This is our Australoplatydellina prodiga. You can see the position of this leech on phylogenetic tree. This species surrounded by North Pacific species, but Australoplatydellina prodiga living in Antarctica. Some pictures from my expeditions and my favorite meetings in Antarctica. Meeting at Vernadsky Station, Dr. Donald Walsh, deepest explorer in the bathyscaphe Trieste. And some pictures from our work. You can see my equipment for deep diving. Leopard seal, one of the largest seal and largest predator in the nearshore zone in Antarctica, with a smile. Sea spider, Cossendays, large sea spider, maybe 10, 15 centimeters. Starfish, very small octopus, Paralidone. Our diving team. And amazing isopod crustacean, Leptonotus antarctica. This is the largest crustacean in Antarctic waters. Volcano sponge is Calimostra jubini. This is the oldest sponge in Antarctica. This specimen may be 5,000-10,000 years old. And we found this sponge not far from our station. And ice fish with transparent blood without hemoglobin, with transparent blood, transparent muscles, transparent bones. Henodracotomatus. and the Kapot crustacean with interesting name Charismus antarcticus. And Weddell Sea, sea elephant, relaxed in the near shore zone. Giant amphipod crustacean Paracerodoxus, near 10 centimeters long. Sea lily and brittle star on the depths near 40 meters. And Labidiaster annulatus, sun or wolf trap starfish. This is one of the largest starfish in Antarctica. The largest specimens near 70 centimeters in diameter. Thank you for your attention. Our time is not long, but some videos and images you can find on my YouTube channel. You can see on this picture. Thank you for your attention again.
All right, I think we'll take one question from the audience for Andrei before he drops off, mindful that it's in the middle of the night and where he is.
You showed in one of those photos those sort of little mini nodule sort of appendages on the leeches. What do they use those for? Can they use them to help swim or walk?
Alex, who can help to translate?
We're going to put one of our audience members on the spot.
Okay, so I'll be really honest. They did not
My
teach
English
me that.
not perfect.
They did not teach me nodules or tentacles in Ukrainian school on Saturdays. Питається ті маленькі ножки, що стирчать з тих клічів, що вони їх вживають.
Це питання про ніжки?
Так.
Ага. Це дуже цікава п'явка. Ну, взагалі, п'явки мають гладке тіло. Гладке тіло. Но от ця п'явка відрізняється від інших тим, що у неї ми знайшли оці ніжки. Скоріш за все, вона ними ходить по дну. Вона ходить по дну або шукає якусь тверду поверхню. І такі ніжки є тільки у дальніх родичів цієї п'явки, у поліхет.
It only happens in certain species of these types of leeches.
The similar projections have only polychaetes. This is the neighbors of the leeches. Yeah. And only one specimen of the leeches have this leg-like projections, maybe for attaching to the hard surface on the bottom.
So I know that there's a lot of questions that are out there, and I wish we could keep you up all night, Andrei. But I think just to keep the flow going, this translation is a perfect opportunity to introduce our partners for the evening, the Ukrainian Institute of America. What we've basically done is we wanted to tell the story of what is happening with Ukraine's Antarctic research. And we had a club member, Alex, who was trying to do that with a documentary that got disrupted first by COVID and then by the war. Through Alex, we were able to learn about what's happening at the station, but I want to kind of bring the program to its culmination here because the question is, what is happening there now? What is happening during the war? And in order to try to find out about that, we turned to our neighbors at the Ukrainian Institute of America. So with that, please welcome Lydia.
So I was going to thank Professor Andriy. I'm not sure if he can still hear us. Дуже дякую. So I'm Lydia. As you heard already, I'm going to try and be short. It's a bit humbling here to be with you at this podium where Jane Goodall, among other amazing people, have presented. So bear with me, please, if I consult my notes as I talk briefly here. We are so proud and honored to partner with the Explorers Club tonight. It's the first time we've done this. We hope for much more collaboration in the future. Thank you for including us. The president of our board of directors is our translator tonight. Thanks, Kathy. We also have some other board members and members of our institute here tonight, so we're thrilled to be here. For nearly 80 years, the Ukrainian Institute of America has stood at the heart of New York's cultural landscape on Museum Mile, preserving and presenting Ukrainian heritage, culture, history, and intellectual life. The Institute was founded by an explorer, a young Ukrainian immigrant who came to America seeking opportunity and a better future. He became an inventor, entrepreneur, industrialist, and eventually philanthropist. In the aftermath of World War II, a moment when Ukraine had disappeared behind the Iron Curtain, he created our institution, dedicated to ensuring that Ukrainian culture and identity would continue to have a visible place in our world. That mission continues today through our exhibitions, lectures, concerts, literary programs, and more. We've recently completed our 37th year of Music at the Institute, which is a chamber music series bringing audiences both classical masterworks and music by Ukrainian composers, often unknown and overlooked. We host book launches, discussions, and conversations that help bring Ukrainian voices and perspectives into broader life, public life. We are where the world meets Ukraine. Please come and see us soon and talk to me or any of our team here. If you want to come to our book launch on Thursday at the Institute, come get to know us. We have Sebastian Junger talking with author James Verini. Many of us leading Ukrainian American organizations today are descendants of refugees displaced by World War II. We grew up hearing stories from our parents and grandparents who lost their homes, crossed borders, rebuilt their lives from nothing, and yet never lost their connections to Ukraine, to its language, culture, traditions, and longing for freedom. Those stories have shaped us, and they taught us that identity is not simply inherited, but is protected and carried forward generation after generation. Tragically, today, we're witnessing another generation of Ukrainians living through displacement, fear, trauma, and uncertainty. Even as we are here this evening, I venture to guess that many of the Ukrainians we're hearing about at the station, in Kharkiv in Ukraine, across the globe, whether at the station or on the NOOSFERA, thousands of miles from Ukraine, still live with their phones monitoring the air raid apps used by their loved ones at home. And yet they continue their work wherever they are, contributing to humanity's shared knowledge, even while carrying the emotional weight of their nation under attack. A big part of what we are witnessing in Ukraine today comes from a profound transformation that took place after the collapse of the Soviet Union. Ukraine consciously chose to look outward towards democratic values, open inquiry, civic participation, and intellectual freedom. Its educational system deliberately pivoted, moving away from rigid Soviet models and toward an approach that encouraged questioning, dialogue, and individual responsibility. We're now seeing a generation raised in that system step into leadership across their civil society, government, science, and culture. And when the full-scale invasion began in 2022, the first to respond were ordinary citizens, Civil society mobilized overnight. People defended communities, organized aid, protected one another, and bought time for their country to withstand what many believed would be over in just a matter of days. That spirit, that sense of collective responsibility and human dignity, is deeply connected to the values we honor here in the United States as we approach the 250th anniversary of our own founding. Because at its core, while Ukraine's struggle is about territorial integrity, it's just as much about the right of a people to determine their own future, preserve their culture, speak their language, and to pursue science and art and scholarship and discovery without fear. So tonight, I thank each of you for being here and ask you to remain engaged. Continue learning about Ukraine, not only the headlines you see about destruction, also about some of the more difficult stories, the abduction of Ukrainian children, occupation of communities, daily suffering endured by civilians in the human safari of drones, and also be inspired by the creativity of Ukrainians in fashion and food and art and literature and technology and innovation. Read about Ukrainians, write to your representatives about them, stay engaged. Because the scientists we hear about this evening are doing more than conducting research in one of the most harsh environments on the globe. They're demonstrating in real time the resilience of a people determined to remain fully part of the global scientific, cultural, and democratic community. And they need our support. We can't forget about them. In closing, I'd like to share with you something we do at the Ukrainian Institute. At the start of each of our events, we observe a brief moment of silence to honor those who have sacrificed their lives defending their homeland, Ukraine's freedom, sovereignty, and right to self-determination. And so even though we're gathered here, not at the Institute, but at the Explorers Club, I ask you to stand if you're able and to join me for a moment of silence in continuing the tradition. Thank you so much. So it is my pleasure now to hand the mic over dear friend of Ukraine and of the Ukrainian Institute of America, David Ballas from the UK Consulate here in New York.
As I am getting older, I realize I need to have these more often, which is a problem in New York when I go to restaurants and forget them. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Let me first thank the Explorers Club and Paul for inviting me to join you tonight on the occasion of their 2026 Memorial Day lecture. My name is David Ballas, and I am sadly not an explorer. Growing up, I often thought I might be. Encouraged by Sir Douglas Mawson's remarkable book, The Home of the Blizzard, which I highly recommend, I applied to join a research voyage to Antarctic waters as part of a youth team alongside polar explorer Robert Swan in 96-97. Promisingly, I was successfully selected as first reserve for the voyage. Unfortunately, however, they did not need the first reserve, so I did not travel. I always think of this as one of my sliding door moments, and often wonder what might have been if I had joined that expedition, but also if my subsequent decision to join the British Diplomatic Service was my own way of feeding a hunger for exploration that never really went away. Despite this, I do feel something of a fraud standing before you in this wonderful institution, but I thank you for the opportunity to say a few words about the British link to Vernadsky, past and present. Some of this will be repetitive, because I now know that Alex has covered quite a lot of it by people who actually know what they were talking about, rather than someone who has researched it and spoken to other people. But as we have heard, the story of Ukrainian exploration and research in the Antarctic is closely linked to that of Great Britain. One of the key moments in this cooperation took place in the early 90s when the British Antarctic Survey undertook a restructuring program that involved the development of their NOOSFERA and Haley research stations and considered the future of the then Faraday station. There was thought given to converting Faraday into an unmanned facility with automated data collection, but ultimately the Antarctic Survey looked to transfer Faraday to another international partner, seeing this as a much more effective way of continuing research and in keeping with the spirit of the international cooperation enshrined in the Antarctic Treaty. Around this time, our Ukrainian partners, as we've heard earlier, have been left without an Antarctic presence following the collapse of the Soviet Union in '92 and Moscow's refusal to transfer any of their operating stations to post-Soviet Ukraine. Following a flurry of diplomacy, joint research missions at Faraday, and a series of negotiations, an MOU was signed between the British Antarctic Survey and the Ukrainians in 1995, with the British gifting Faraday Station to Ukraine, marking the start of Vernadsky Research Base. The formal handover ceremony took place at 7 p.m. on the 6th of February in '96, where the British flag was lowered and the Ukrainian flag raised. I read that we sold it for £1. I'm glad to hear that's probably what happened. I would love to know whether £1 actually exchanged hands, or maybe they just bought us a beer at the bar. That would also have worked. Crucially, Ukraine agreed to continue the long-term scientific monitoring, particularly the ozone and upper atmosphere observations, to ensure the continuity of valuable data sets. This had been a key stipulation of the British at the time. It goes without saying that Ukraine upheld these obligations, maintaining high-quality observations and continuing to contribute to the long-term ozone record from the islands. The British Antarctic Survey scientist John Shackleton, who was the individual who discovered the hole in the ozone layer, confirmed that Ukrainian measurements were of the highest quality and fully consistent with the established long-term data set. Thanks to the commitment and professionalism of our Ukrainian colleagues, Vernadsky continues to maintain the longest continuous running meteorological data set in Antarctica, which started in 1947 under the British. Following the handover, the British Antarctic Survey and the National Antarctic Scientific Centre of Ukraine maintained a close working relationship. Regular communication, reciprocal visits to each other's stations and institutions, and the provision of training supported continuity in scientific operations and strengthened cooperation between our national programs. And in another tangible link between the two nations and our Antarctic programs, our Ukrainian partners acquired the Royal Research Ship James Clark Ross from the British Antarctic Survey in 2021 and renamed her NOOSFERA. It is worth noting that it was the then RRS James Clark Ross that delivered the first Ukrainian expedition to Faraday Vernadsky. This cooperation between the British and the Ukrainians in Antarctica remains alive and well. During this Antarctic summer season, so a few months ago, the British Antarctic Survey and the National Antarctic Scientific Centre collaborated to deliver essential logistics support to the NOOSFERA research station and to study jointly the impact of climate change. The NOOSFERA transported personnel and cargo to NOOSFERA and back after it had resupplied Vernadsky research base, which is about a day's sailing from NOOSFERA. Ukrainian scientists on the NOOSFERA worked together with the British Antarctic Survey Marine Team out of NOOSFERA and the scientists of the Polo Mint project. And their work included carrying out oceanographic measurements, collecting seawater samples that will remain critical for our work in understanding the impact of climate change on coastal Antarctica. These joint endeavours are hoped to lead to further other marine science projects, enabling further close cooperation and the transfer and sharing of skills and knowledge and training for scientists from both countries. This operational cooperation strengthens the relationship between the British Antarctic Survey and the National Antarctic Scientific Centre, demonstrating the value of shared infrastructure, mutual support among national Antarctic operators, but is also a reflection of the depth and breadth of the relationship between our two countries. It is a relationship that survives and thrives in tough environments and extremes, where close cooperation, trust, shared values, and joint endeavour matter. It is a relationship that we, the British, value tremendously. Ahead of this evening, it will not surprise you, I hope, to know that I have been in touch with colleagues from the British Antarctic Survey, who were clear, and I quote, "Ukraine has run continuous row-round operations since taking over Faraday Station in 1996. Ukraine's ongoing contribution to global research, spanning atmospheric science, including both meteorological and geophysics, as well as biology, demonstrates the importance it places on international scientific collaboration. The relationship is a testament to what can be achieved through collaboration, science, and the Antarctic Treaty. The work that the NASC continues at Vernadsky is essential in helping us to understand climate change." I am no expert on Antarctic exploration or indeed science, But I have spent the last quarter of a century up to my elbows in the mysterious world of diplomacy, where wondrous surprises, experiences, and moments of revelation can still be found, but where monsters still lurk. I sometimes feel like diplomacy and exploration are not so different. As such, it would be remiss of me not to directly mention events that are occurring right now in Ukraine and in the heart of Europe. The reaction of the Ukrainians following Russia's full-scale invasion in 2022, years after their illegal annexation of Crimea and the war in eastern Ukraine, which started in 2014, is a story of resilience, bravery and determination, unbelievable courage and sacrifice. It is also a story of innovation and enterprise, and a demonstration of the unbreakable spirit of Ukraine, which the rest of us should be immensely grateful for. These are many of the same characteristics and values that the highly capable, resourceful, and professional members of the Ukrainian Antarctic teams demonstrate on a daily basis. From a British perspective, I feel confident to say that we are with you in Antarctica, and we are with you in Ukraine. So thank you very much, and I hope you enjoy the rest of it.
Thank you, David, for sharing those words and for physically embodying the commitment of the British government to supporting the Ukrainians in this fight and in this research. And as I said, we reached out to the Ukrainian Institute of America for help with how can we connect with the people who are actually doing this. We originally hoped for a port call by NOOSFERA during Fleet Week, but what we got was even cooler, the actual presence of a British diplomat talking about this, and what you're about to see, which is a video recorded directly from Vernadsky Station for this event tonight by the base commander. This will be the final event of tonight's evening. I realize we're running a little late. I appreciate your patience. I do want to just briefly note this photograph was provided to us for tonight's lecture. It was taken by Lieutenant Commander Phil Bowick, an Explorers Club Fellow and also of the Royal Navy, and was taken aboard HMS Protector at Vernadsky Station last year. So with that, if we could roll the video message from, and just a glimpse behind the scene, the technical difficulties of getting people awake in Ukraine at the time of this lecture, or a live stream from Antarctica. But we're lucky to have a great AV team and staff here working this.
Hello from Antarctica. My name is Angelica Hanchuk and I am the leader of the 31st Ukrainian Antarctic expedition and the head of Ukrainian Antarctic Station Akademik Vernadsky for the following year. Today, Ukraine continues its scientific work in Antarctica despite the full-scale war happening in our country. And for us, this has a very deep meaning. Antarctic research is built on continuity. Many of the observations carried out at Vernadsky Station, atmospheric measurements, climate monitoring, oceanographic and geophysical observations are valuable precisely because they are uninterrupted and continue across decades. If these long records are broken, part of their scientific value is lost forever. And we also carry out biological research studying Antarctic ecosystems and how living organisms adapt to one of the hardest environments on Earth. Even during war, Ukraine continues maintaining its Antarctic station, sending expeditions, supporting research and contributing data to international scientific community. For us, this is not only about science, it is also about responsibility. By continuing scientific work, even in extremely difficult times, Ukraine demonstrates that we remain committed to knowledge, international cooperation, and long-term thinking. It shows that we continue looking toward the future, not only the future for our own country, but also the future of our shared planet. Because supporting science ultimately means supporting humanity itself. The belief that knowledge, cooperation, and human life still matter, even during periods of a great uncertainty. Working here during wartime also changes your perception of distance and isolation. Physically, we are thousands of kilometers away from Ukraine, surrounded by the Southern Ocean and Antarctic winter, but emotionally, we remain deeply connected to what is happening at home every single day. Many members of our expedition have families, friends, and colleagues living under air raid alerts and missile attacks. Sometimes we begin our mornings in Antarctica by reading news from Ukraine before starting scientific observations and operational work at station. And yet, continuing this work matters deeply to us, because science is also a form of resilience. It is a way of saying that even during war, Ukraine remains part of the global scientific community and continues contributing to international research, environmental monitoring, and understanding of our planet. At Vernadsky Station, we continue studying the atmosphere, weather processes, the Southern Ocean, and environmental changes in Antarctica. These observations are part of international scientific cooperation and help improve our understanding of climate and Earth's systems that affect the whole planet. Antarctica gives a very clear perspective of how interconnected the world really is. Climate, atmosphere, ocean circulation, and environmental changes do not recognize borders. What happens in polar regions eventually affects all of us. Perhaps this is why Antarctic research has always represented something larger than science alone. In a world shaped by war and uncertainty, it remains a powerful example of international cooperation, shared responsibility, and trust between people and nations. And maybe this is one of the most important things Antarctica reminds us of today, that even in difficult times, humanity must continue looking forward, continue science, protecting knowledge, supporting one another, and working together for the future that extends beyond any one country or generation. Thank you so much from Akademik Vernadsky Station, from Ukraine, and from Antarctica.
I will not even attempt to follow that other than to say thank you to our partners for helping us with this event. We normally do a question and answer. In light of the time and because we have so many interesting partners to talk to, what I would like to ask you to do is just come, if I could ask our speakers to come to the front, please. The Military Veterans Initiative in the club has these little military spec Explorers Club flags. And I'd just like to present one to Alex, and to Lydia, and to David. Brought one for your board president as well. And then these last two, sometimes people say the Explorers Club's a little bit like a pyramid scheme. I got to keep pulling people in. So we're hoping that we could bring Dr. Andri into the club as well. Look forward to sponsoring him. Wouldn't it be great if that base commander joined the club here? So a round of applause for our great speakers who helped us tonight. If I could ask you guys to exit down to the bar, and if you want to ask them a question, follow them down there. Thank you for coming to this Memorial Day lecture. Please continue to support Ukraine and Slava Ukraini. Right? We can do one afterwards, yeah. So, all right, thank you.